Well, Vladimir Putin's at it again. He's the stalwart of the Russian economy. He's going to lead the Russian people out of oppression. And as always, he's trying to drive on production, keep this girl working, washing a Russian-made car that's made by the Russian people in a Russian factory, using her Russian body and a Russian soap bar or whatever the hell it is. So Vladimir Putin is always on the job. Now, there's an interesting story that came about because Vladimir Putin likes to push himself as a stalwart backer of the Orthodox Russian Church, a believer in Christ and a churchgoer. I've always said that's something strictly for the masses. It's not. I'm not knocking it, but I'm saying is Vladimir Putin is a rich playboy, and he's got an image that he pushes out to the Russian masses. That's what he is. Now, just a little while ago, so many months ago, he had Pussy Riot arrested for hooliganism in a church for his demonstration-type performance they put on, mocking the church, basically. In some ways, they're right. They're not correct in doing it against the average Russian person, but organized religion, in many cases, is a big bunch of garbage, and I want to get onto a story that just appeared here very recently. And I'll post a link, but basically it's in the Telegraph. You could say whatever you want about the paper, but the story goes on to say Moscow police have discovered a brothel on the premises of a monastery whose abbot is thought to be President Vladimir Putin's spiritual advisor. This is one of the oldest monasteries in Moscow, and they found a brothel on it with whips and chains and customers and advertisements and all this other stuff. So, goes on to state that Father Tikhon, the abbot of the monastery, is said to be a religious counselor to Mr. Putin, who is a confirmed Russian Orthodox believer. This has always been my problem with religion, because it's like it's been my problem with even the Iranian clerics, because they at the top will tell everybody else you can't do this and you'll be stoned to death if you don't, but they do everything else they want. Just like in Iran, the police that was ahead of investigating brothels was caught in a brothel himself, naked with a bunch of naked prostitutes. And this is what you find out with a lot of leadership, moral leadership, and political leadership. So, don't worship Vladimir Putin. He's a fraud. That's what I say. Life News, a popular muckraking website with close ties to the police and security services, said the building where the brothel was located on Rodovensky Boulevard has been rented out by the monastery. Now, of course, the monastery is going to deny they know anything about it and all this kind of garbage. You know that. Now, I'm going to post the link where this is. You can read the whole story, but I want to emphasize a couple things on here, because these are the clues that what goes on in the church is not all about living a poor, pious life of dedicating yourself to Christianity and people and to converting others to Christ in His ways. Actually, you could do that pretty cheap, because all it takes is a King James version of the Bible, and I know I'm Roman Catholic, I'm not supposed to read that version. But I read, so many different versions that I realized the King James one is probably the best one to go by. If you don't understand it, just read the red words. It's not that difficult. The words that Christ actually said, and actually go by them the best you can. And guess what? You don't need to go broke supporting all these big organized religions out there. So critics of the church said its moral posturing is eroded by the behavior of senior clerics. Patriarch Kirill was pillared in April for wearing, this is April 2012, for wearing a 20,000 euro Begot watch. So, that's another point. I pointed out that Putin wears watches that are, hundreds of thousands of euros. He's broke, right? More than his salary, right? More than his salary, supposedly. And a priest, also another incident, a priest in Moscow came under scrutiny in August of the same year, 2012, after crashing a BMW Z4 sports roadster with a Maltese license plates. So where the hell does he get money from that? He's living a life dedicated to God and Christ. So, what I say, these guys are a bunch of hypocrites. This guy's a big hypocrite. I don't know, a lot of Westerners are getting behind him because he's like the alternative to the Western elite. Well, what I say, he's all hooked in with it. And, I'm going to point out, I don't have the actual reference here, but he's, Putin was basically another guy who was supporting Berlusconi. And I don't really have nothing against Berlusconi, former prime minister of Italy. But, he made some remarks there that gives you a big hint about, the kind of people he was dealing with. Basically, underworld. He's got ties, they say it's alleged, but I can't see how it's alleged. Supposedly he's got, you won't get the proof though, he's got ties into Swiss trading houses that are involved in a lot of oil trading. I think this guy is super loaded. And the whole thing he plays on the outside with religion is a front. So here we got a story that comes out, a monastery, who's the abbot of the monastery is a spiritual advisor to Vladimir Putin. It's a monastery that's located in Moscow. It's one of the oldest ones, or it is the oldest Orthodox monastery in Moscow, in the center of Moscow, and it's running a brothel for quite some time, with various rooms with whips and chains and all this other wonderful stuff. So what the hell are these guys doing anyway? So are they men of the cloth? Are they about religion? Are they about practicing Christ's words? Or are they about collecting money from people that are poor to give to them? They're running a racket. And, this guy is another one running a racket. So, he's got his whips and chains out here. He's got another Russian serf washing a car. So I'm sure he's getting paid a lot for this. But it's just another part of the hypocrisy. And I don't like when people in the West buy into this guy, because this guy is the same thing as, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, all the hype people you bitch about and you don't like, the Rothschilds. He's the same thing. The only difference is he's got the Russian flavor, and he sticks up. He's got a lot of nationalistic pride. That's where you might figure it's different. But you being a Westerner, it doesn't put you very high on his list, does it? You're not a Russian, are you? He has a lot of nationalistic pride. So you as a Westerner, I don't know why you're flipping sides and going over to this guy, because this guy is bad news too, and it's just another indication that, the elite, no matter where the hell they are in the world, they're just a bunch of fraudsters out to freaking take it from the average person. So save your money, buy a silver coin. Don't waste it on this clown.